Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode number 40 of the Primetime Rundown interview series powered by StreamYard right here on the Eastern Observer. My name is Ian Schraier, and tonight I take the chair that is usually occupied by my co-host on the Primetime Rundown, Joey Jarzinka. To begin, we mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I would be ushering in a new segment of the interview series in which we would focus on an industry that is near and dear to our hearts right here on the Eastern Observer, the athletic communications industry. I am very proud to say that I've worked alongside many great SIDs that I call my friends, my peers, my colleagues for the last 15 years. And I am to say delighted to offer this platform to all of you to help tell your incredible stories. And with that said, while I don't have as many years in the business as tonight's guest, it is my privilege and pleasure to welcome the Associate Director of Athletics for Communications at Hofstra University, Stephen Gorchov. Steve, welcome to the show.
Ian, thanks so much. It's an opportunity. I don't know why you want to talk to me, but
I believe we are losing Steve here for a second. Steve, are you still with us? I believe, again, we are losing Steve here. Hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get Steve Gorchov back here momentarily. I do apologize. But like I said, this was a couple of weeks ago. We had mentioned right here on the Primetime Rundown interview series powered by StreamYard that we would be welcoming in guests from the athletic communications industry. And we are just so thrilled, like I said, to have Steve Gorchov on with us here tonight. And as soon as we appear to have a few technical difficulties here, we will get back up and running, but please hold with us for a few moments here. Okay, Steve, are you with us here?
Yeah, I'm not. That was our first glitch there. I don't know what
happened. Hopefully, the first of only one.
Sounds great. Like we better move along here before it happens again.
Yeah, hopefully not. But like I said, again, welcome to the show, the Associate Director of Athletics for Communications at Hofstra University, Stephen Gorchov. Steve, once again, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Steve, I would ask you what you've been up to for the last 7-8 months, but it appears the news has kind of broke. Only a short while ago, it gets announced that the Hofstra and Iona men's basketball programs are going to play a 3-game series with home court advantage. I know this wasn't on the prompt that I had sent to you initially, but I kind of want to go off the cuff here since this news was broken today, that the host of the first game is going to be determined in a rock, paper, scissors game matchup between the two schools' mascots. How did this come to be about exactly?
Yeah, a lot of conversations between the institutions. Brian at Iona and Brian Graff at Hofstra, our program administrator. A lot of conversations, and you know what? It's been a very serious 8 months between the pandemic and, as everyone's trying to manage what's going on in college athletics. And, the two schools had some fun with it, and it's certainly getting a lot of traction on social media today. And you know what? We got to have a little fun with sports sometimes, and this certainly added a little fun to it.
Well, there's certainly no lulls in excitement for you. I mean, I thought I wasn't even going to have anything else to mention to you before our interview leading into tonight. So I'm glad we had that breaking news to discuss.
Yeah, it should be great. And you know what? They're two of the probably best programs in the area over the last, 5 to 10 years are Hofstra and Iona. So, the rock, paper, scissor contest aside, it's just a really good basketball game for two teams that haven't met in almost a decade.
Well, that helps. And how long has it been? It's only been a couple of months removed that Rick Pitino was named the head men's basketball coach at Iona. It's his return home to Long Island. He grew up in Bayville. So, and also there's a Hofstra connection there too, because the current athletic director at Hofstra University, Rick Cole, came over from Iona. So there's a lot of ties. Not even in terms of proximity. I mean, Hofstra and Iona haven't met in almost a decade, as you met, but the ties between Rick and both Ricks, Rick Cole and Rick Pitino, like you said, it should make for a great non-conference matchup, and we're really looking forward to it.
Absolutely, it should be fun, and I'm obviously rooting hard for Willie on Wednesday, and Killian should keep an eye out for Willie's Paul.
So let's talk about you, Steve. I mean, how have you? I mean, it's been a long 7 to 8 months. How have you been holding up so far through this pandemic over the last 7 8 months? What's it been like for you?
Yeah, long is certainly the right word. It's been in just a wild time since I think it's so we won the men's basketball championship on March 10th, and that was a Tuesday. So it was kind of that Friday that kind of just where everything changed. And that Monday is when everybody started working from home, really. So I guess that's the 16th. And, it's the first few weeks you were just trying to grasp what's going on and trying to figure out how to work from home and trying to figure out how to be productive from home. And then as the weeks and months went on, it became the regular occurrence of what you were doing. And then gradually everyone's starting to come back to work a little bit more as the athletic seasons are approaching. And, you have to learn new ways to do things. You have to learn new approaches to getting things done. And you have to learn how to communicate in different ways. And the way we did it at Hofstra was no different than you did it in your area and then anybody else did it at any other institution. And you just have to kind of roll with the punches. There was no choice, right?
Well, I mean, where would we be in 2020 without Zoom? I mean, that's really the end all be all at this point.
Were you ever on a Zoom before March 16th?
No, had never even heard of it.
Yeah, I'd heard of it, I think, but I'm not sure I was ever actually on a Zoom.
It's like you said, Steve. It's just been a very long 7 8 months. Are you now back on campus? Are you still working remotely? A combination of the two?
Combination of the two, depending on the week. I'm either in Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday. Me and the rest of our office and athletic communications kind of split the weeks between the four of us and work that way. But yeah, so this week's I was home today. Today's Monday, right? You lose. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. You lose track of days when you're home a lot. So this week I'm a Tuesday, Thursday in the office.
Okay. So let's take it back to a little simpler times before we had a pandemic that was ravaging the country. You grew up in an area in the area of suburban Philly. You grew up in a town called Lafayette Hill, Pennsylvania, which is about a half hour north of downtown Philly. Tell me, what was it like your childhood, and what really grew your love of sports?
I don't know. Do you know a lot of people from Philadelphia?
Only a handful.
Yeah, the thing about people from Philadelphia, it doesn't take much to grow your love of sports. For what people consider a large city, it's really not. People are diehard Philadelphia sports fans. I'd argue that the sport that probably gets the Flyers fans are really the diehards of the four, I think, and the Eagles. But it doesn't take much in growing up in Philadelphia to really be a humongous sports fan, and I was no different growing up. We went to Phillies games at the Vet. I think we went to a Sixers championship game in 1983, and we had to leave early because my brother hurt my brother's ears or something. But yeah, you just grew up loving sports because you had four favorite teams. It's very unlike New York where you could choose. We didn't have a choice, and you lived and died with those teams and their successes, and for a lot of the time growing up, their failures. We didn't Philadelphia teams didn't win a lot of championships growing up. I was 1 year old when the Flyers won, 2, 6 when the Eagles won. So 1 or 2 or 3 there, but other than that, slim pickings until 2008. You kind of born into it in Philadelphia, I think.
I was going to say, you say how the Flyers and the Eagles are really the diehard fans of Philadelphia sports. And I would say only up until the last couple of years, it was really the Phillies and what's going on with the 76ers right now that's really been controlling Philadelphia sports. So that's very interesting how you mentioned that.
Yeah, I certainly could be wrong. That's my viewpoint. I mean, the Eagles fans are like no others. Those who are the diehard Eagles fans are unlike any fans. And, if we want to go on a tangent, we could talk about how Philadelphia sports fans get a raw deal from the general sports fan and media in general, but we won't go there. I got it out right now, so we're good there.
I mean, as a lifelong New York sports fan, I don't know whether to agree with you or disagree with you, but I will tell you, I'm starting to lean one way. But
Yeah, one snowball at Santa 100 years ago, and now people think we're terrible people.
So Steve, you're a Hofstra lifer. You completed your undergrad at the university here on Long Island in 1997 with your bachelor's degree in sociology. But you grew up in the greater Philadelphia area. You were surrounded by the Big Five: Villanova, St. Joe's, LaSalle, Penn, Temple. What really attracted you to Hofstra and Long Island when you had so much around you in Philly?
Well, so you're jogging my memory a little bit because we're talking a few years ago, early to mid 90s. I do recall I had a neighbor about four houses away who had gone to Hofstra or was in the midst of going to Hofstra, and she loved it and talked great about it. And I think I wanted to go away. And I actually don't recall visiting it prior, but and there was not the internet, so I didn't do any online tours or anything. But I just liked what I had heard about it and thought it was the right fit. The size of the school is great, the location's great, and it certainly has a great athletics program and did then as well.
Well, you decided on Hofstra and you became immediately involved in athletics. You got involved right away. Go figure, with the team and the program that you're heavily involved with today, the men's basketball program. Worked as the team manager for then who became the program's all-time and still today the all-time winningest coach, Butch Van Bredikoff. And then you ended up working with those we know as Villanova's current head coach when he was at Hofstra, Jay Wright. So right away as a freshman, you become so involved with the men's basketball program. I mean, so many students, I'm sure, would love an opportunity like that. You get it as a freshman. How did that come to be?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually remember how that came to be. I was a naive 18-year-old kid, and there was no email, and I didn't know where the basketball office was. So honestly, what I did, and this is no joke, I picked up the phone and called the coach, Butch Van Bredikoff. This is a man that has coached for 60 years or 50 years, had coached Wilt Chamberlain, had coached at 8 to 10 other places in professional leagues, the Lakers. I picked up the phone and called him before school had started for me as a freshman and said, I'd like to be a manager for the basketball team. How can I do that? And I remember the conversation. He told me to stop by the office once school starts, and we'll see what we can do. And that was the start of it. And no joke, it was just a naive 18-year-old kid from Philadelphia area who just picked up the phone and made a call.
I have to ask, though, Stephen, I know you take a lot of pride in this. Was the beverage fridge as good back then as it is today?
I don't recall. I imagine it was much smaller. I vaguely remember it was a small cooler in what we call the dance studio in our old gym now. Keep in mind, since I started working full-time, we have opened up our arena in the last 20 years. So, yeah, it was a different time. I imagine there was maybe some water and some Coke and Sprite or something at that point. So it has taken leaps and bounds from then.
I was going to say, for those of our viewers that have actually never been to the MAC, Mr. Gorchov certainly takes a lot of pride in that fridge, certainly makes sure at the first home game every season to let people know what that fridge is stacked with. And I would say there's about 10 times the amount of options that there were back in 1997. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
So you all, in addition to serving with the men's basketball program, you spent 2 years also serving as the head manager as well with the volleyball program there in 96 and 97. So actually right after you graduated, you were still there in the fall of 97. Winter of 97, you return home. You become a ticket intern working at Drexel before actually getting the opportunity now to come back to Hofstra so quickly, just such a quick about face for you, and become the administrative assistant for the volleyball program. So what spurred, I mean, obviously it's your alma mater, but what spurred that quick about face? Did someone reach out to you? Did the right opportunity come? What was it?
So after I stopped working with basketball, I started working with volleyball program, and I immediately became really close with the program. One of my best friends to this day was on the team, and the head coach has become a mentor, not even almost, has become family to me, Fran Califer. I still talk to her regularly to this day, and she's one of the most important people in my life. And she helped me during that time, and she helped me, gave me an opportunity then twice, both as a manager and then as administrative assistant. And it was really great. She is one of the most successful coaches Hofstra's ever had, and I loved being part of that program. I got to see some incredible wins, some incredible appearances in the NCAA tournament. It was really a special time for me to really learn about the Hofstra volleyball program and the sport I really didn't know a lot about at that point. But I've learned I've really learned, and at this point, it's become one of my favorite sports.
Volleyball is certainly one of my favorite sports to watch. I mean, working in the industry for 15 years, is there a certain sport? I mean, I don't want to say you have a bias towards basketball, but I kind of want to shoot off that point. Is there a certain sport over your years at Hofstra that you've enjoyed watching one more than the other?
Certainly basketball is probably near or at the top, but like I just mentioned, volleyball is something that is near and dear to my heart. Some of my closest friends and some of the best years of my career and as a student are working with the volleyball program. The team is, since I've been around, is 9 NCAA tournament appearances. You name it, we've gone in NCAA tournament appearances to places in Texas, Utah, Penn State, you name it. And I've seen the highest of highs in that sport. And it's really something I've grown to really love. And obviously, like I mentioned, men's basketball is really special. But you know what? You're no different. Once you're in the field for a decade or more, you grow a love for a lot of different sports. And I grew up, I didn't know a thing about lacrosse or women's lacrosse, and I've now worked with women's lacrosse for 15 years. And if you got Shannon Smith on this show next, she would tell you how much I love her program, and I do anything I can for her program. It goes on and on from there. And before I worked with men's basketball, I was working with women's basketball, and my favorite all-time student athlete at Hofstra is a women's basketball student athlete.
Who is it, if you don't mind me asking?
Lizanne Murphy. She played in the mid-00s from Canada, two-time Olympian, the only two-time Olympian in Hofstra athletic history. And I mean, just a wonderful person, and really, she knows she's my all-time favorite. And she's getting inducted into the Hofstra Athletics Hall of Fame next summer, so I'm really happy for her.
I was gonna say, have you actually told her that, or
that's not
actually telling her that?
No, that's not hidden information. She knows she's my favorite.
So a year later, the rest really was history for you. You're named the Assistant Director of Athletic Communications at Hofstra. A year later, you've been in the same office now for 20 years. Did you have any sort of SID background before you took on this role?
I didn't, and I'm maybe jumping ahead on a question, but getting into a field at that point, I don't love the word because it's not really a word I knew then, but networking, I guess, is the word. You just get to know people in the business, and you get to know people in college athletics, and you get to know people in the department you're working in. And certainly it's going to help you along the lines, and it's going to help whether it helps you at the place you're working or it helps you in another job opportunity. Getting to know people, talking to people, and just learning from people is really the best way to advance in your career. And I go back to the phone call to Coach Van Bredikoff. That was one time where I was naive, and I guess you could use the word network, but I didn't know what I was doing. And along the lines, it helped lead me to a full-time job in athletic communications, and I've managed to stay in the field forever, right?
Well, stay in the field and also stay at one school. I mean, like we said at the earlier in the show, you're a Hofstra lifer. You've never really left Hofstra except for the 1 year you were at Drexel. But you spoke about networking, and I really want to piggyback off that point. You had the opportunity to work for a legend in the field who only retired almost a year ago, Jim Sheehan at Hofstra. You've known him for 20 years. Can you describe what your relationship was like and still is like to this day to have worked for him and with him?
20 years, almost 30, because I started school in 1992, and I guess when I was a basketball manager, he was certainly the men's basketball contact for most of those years. So, you said the word. Jim will always be a legend in this field. I learned incredible work lessons from him, and I would say the paramount of those lessons is talking to people and communicating with people. There is no better person in our field that I've ever come across talking to other to get to know people and talking to people and just being, rather than dropping an email or picking up a phone to go see somebody. Jim is and was the best person at that, and that's really the basis for what you need to do to be successful in this business. And he excelled in that, and he excelled in the field, and he taught a lot of great lessons in that until the day he retired, about how to communicate and how to talk to people and how to just be to lead the way in this field.
Well, you built up a lot of camaraderie, I'm sure, in that office for the number of decades that you had worked with him. And alongside with Jim, you got to work with Lenny Skoros, who predated you at Hofstra as well. So what was it like building the camaraderie up between the three of you?
Yeah, it was great. And it still is great to this day. Len's a valuable member of our office now to these days, to today. And, he's kind of become our, in addition to all the other tasks with the sports he covers, and overseeing all of our publications and all the he kind of proofs a lot of the documents we do. He's become a resident historian, which is one of the most important things, as you know, in any athletic communications office. It's daily request to Len. Hey, Len, do you have a photo of random student athlete from 1970? We got a request from Lacrosse Magazine last week for a photo of a men's lacrosse All-American from the early 70s. I'm sorry, the early 80s. And within like 5 minutes, Len had the photo. And that's kind of, he excels in those areas, and he's an incredible, valuable member of our department, both athletic department and athletic communications. And, he just really, he excels in all the little things and on a daily basis. And he's awesome to have around. And he's been great for both me, Rachel, and Nick in our office every day.
Being in that office as long as you have, you've seen a lot of highs, you've seen a lot of lows. You've endured a lot of things. You've seen the subtraction of a football program. You've seen the men's basketball team's historic season last year, winning a colonial championship, getting a chance to go back to the NCAA tournament for the first time in 2 decades and see that dismantled by the COVID crisis. Hosting men's lacrosse national quarterfinals at Stewart. I mean, you've seen a lot of events in your career at Hofstra. What would you say, the highest high or the lowest low? What would you say is the biggest moment that maybe you look back on in your career so far?
From a general athletic department standpoint, certainly, maybe team success aside, we always talk about how much fun it is to host those quarterfinals. We shine, and that's why we keep getting to host them. The NCAA loves bringing back to Hofstra. We have an amazing facility, and we do an incredible job hosting these events, and it's so much fun. From the days of Jay Artinian leading as a tournament manager to our current day with Ryan Watson leading the way. We just love doing it, and we love bringing in amazing lacrosse to Long Island and seeing these teams excel. And then obviously on a personal level, the wins are great. If you ask me to name like 2 or 3 wins that really stand out, certainly the men's basketball victory this past March is amazing, as are the wins in the 2000s with who is now Speedy Claxton. Oh, that's me cutting down the net. Yep. And then now you threw me off. My all-time favorite victory is maybe one of 2, maybe. I loved in 2006, our volleyball team won an NCAA tournament first-round match for the first time in program history. We beat Cornell at Penn State, and then got to play Penn State in the next round. Love that. And then in that same year, women's basketball team beat a ranked Michigan State team at Michigan State. Yes, Lizanne was on that team, and that was an incredible night, beating a program like Michigan State. Those are a few of the ones that stand out. And then I can't leave out beating UCLA this year in men's basketball. that was unreal. Literally unreal. Speechless night that one was.
It certainly leaves up to a lot of experiences. Now, if I'm not mistaken, based on how the season progresses in the spring, Hofstra was also supposed to host, or still is supposed to host, the national quarterfinal for men's lacrosse this year, right?
Yeah, so we're currently in the midst of a 6 straight years of hosting. So we host this year coming up, 21, and then we host in 22 to end the 6-year run, which is really going to be 5 because of last year's.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just awarded the next round, and we got it again in 24 and 26. So I mean, like I mentioned before, it's remarkable run for us, and we every time they give us one, we say thank you 100 times, and we can't wait for the next one.
Do you have a favorite national quarterfinal game that really sticks out in your mind over the years?
Yeah, there was the one, I want to say it was 2014, Albany Notre Dame. I don't know if you can. It was when the Thompson brothers were on Albany. They were actually up about, I want to say, 5 goals or so with less than 8 minutes to go. It's been 6 years. I could be off on those numbers a little bit, but Notre Dame came back, tied it, and I believe Notre Dame did win. But I believe it was in overtime. The crowd was packed, and it was a remarkable game going down to the wire, and just the noise from the crowd was awesome. But that was probably the best game I've ever seen in the quarterfinals at Hofstra.
And certainly with sometimes you get some good experiences, you get some bad experiences, but I think as working in the sports information industry, it always comes to where we do have times that we do have to deal with crises. What have been some of your best practices, I should say, to handle these crises? And then what has been maybe the biggest challenge you've endured at Hofstra?
Yeah, it may sound simple, but it's important words to remember. You got to be prepared. You got to be prepared, and you got to have everybody on the same page. One of the best things about Hofstra University is our cohesive unit with our university relations area led by Melissa Connolly. She's a remarkable colleague, and we're very in tune with everything they do. And when crises arise, we are in meetings and we are talking to them. So that she's a legend in the public relations field, and I know from my area I've relied on her, and I know that many of the athletic directors that we've had over the last 30 years or the 15 years since she's been around have certainly relied on her guidance. And you got to be prepared for everything that might happen, and be able to answer the questions. And that's what we've done at Hofstra. And Hofstra is no different than any other institution. Everybody's going to have a crisis, or a situation that's not going to be positive in nature, and we've all had them, and you're just ready. You just got to be ready for everything that's going to happen as a result, and be ready for the questions that are going to follow, and just be confident in how the leaders of your university are handling every situation.
Well, has there really been any bigger crisis than what our nation is currently facing with respect to COVID-19? And especially after the heartbreak only, a year earlier, where Justin Wright Foreman's senior year, Hofstra falls in the, a game short of the finals. And then last year to finally reach the pinnacle and to have the opportunity to reach the big dance. And as we showed before, you got to climb up the ladder, take down a piece of that net, to work with Joe Mihalik's program, and really us through is not only led up to Selection Sunday, and obviously the season being canceled a few days before then, but even the days leading into the Colonial Tournament.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember all those quirky days at that time, but so I remember we went down to the tournament, and you weren't really hearing a ton of chatter about the coronavirus heading into the tournament. I think we went down on, for us, the first game was on Sunday, so we probably went down late Friday. And it was a pretty standard, normal conference tournament trip at that point. And then, you started hearing a little chatter as the days were progressing. But overall, it wasn't until like Tuesday, the day of our championship game, where it started to grow. So Tuesday we played in the championship game on national television. It was really one of the pinnacles of my professional and personal career. Like you've talked about, I am Hofstra through and through. You cut my skin, I'm bleeding blue and gold. So we won the game, and you're going through all the normal post-game stuff, and it's just remarkable. I think I took the ball from Coach Mihalik the moments after the game, and it's actually never left me since. It's still sitting in my office, which is hilarious. But we kind of went through the normal post-game stuff. You're doing the press conferences. We didn't leave the arena until probably 11:30 that night. The first time we really had a conversation, though, was when we got back to the hotel that night. At some point around midnight, we're all in the boardroom where we're meeting for meals and stuff. And Coach just got in front of everybody and said, "We're not really sure when we're home. We're not really sure of the situation. So just be ready for everything. We're gonna sleep here the night, and in the morning we'll have an update." And then in the morning we decided to go home. We felt it was the best course of action. And the first time we ever even thought that something was going to be amiss with the tournament was, I remember our assistant coach, Colin Curtin, said on the bus ride home, I won't forget it. He goes, "I don't think the NCAA tournament's happening." Because all that Wednesday is when all the tournaments were getting canceled around the country. And that was the first time. And by the time we got home, Wednesday, I think they'd already announced that there were no fans at the NCAA tournament. And then, as not to rehash for the world, it spiraled from there. And, by the end of the week, the tournament was gone because I think it was about 4:16, I believe, p.m. And I can tell you why I remember that. It was like 4:16 on Thursday that they canceled the NCAA tournament.
I should say, I actually do remember 4:00. I didn't remember if it was 4:15, 4:16. I remember when, even working for Adelphi, that we were looking back on the season that was when our women's basketball team went 27-3, and what time it was when the announcement had come down from the NCAA announcing that they were canceling all subsequent winter and spring championships. You've seen a lot of great student athletes walk through the halls at Hofstra, and specifically for the men's basketball program, you've seen certainly a few student athletes that have gone on to the NBA. One is with the Utah Jazz right now, as we mentioned, and Justin Wright-Foreman. Curtis Jenkins is another, and then one who's on Joe Mihalik's staff now, Speedy Claxton. So I know 2019-20 season was a great year. Is there a season from from all the years you've been working with that program that stands out in addition to that one?
Yeah, you've kind of said it. They're all great, and we've had some incredible alums, from the ones you mentioned to Norm Richardson, who also played in the NBA. But that first NCAA tournament appearance with Coach Wright in 1999-2000 was really probably the most special one, because it was Speedy Claxton leading the way, who was really just he elevated the program unlike anybody else has or will ever do. And he was a remarkable player, and he's a remarkable person. And he stayed true to himself and came to Hofstra when everybody else was calling, and he elevated our program. And that win obviously changed everything for our university and changed everything, you could say, for Coach Wright. And we had a great experience in the NCAA tournament. Played Oklahoma State with Doug Gottlieb and Desmond Mason, and you learn a lot from that first appearance, because the next year we almost beat UCLA without Speedy Claxton. But that first one is really the one you think about the most. It was special.
Well, the return of the season isn't too far away. The NCAA had announced a while back that the season was going to resume November 25th. I know that the conference schedules, at least, have been announced for the men's and women's basketball programs on gohofstra.com. We certainly hope that in the coming weeks that there'll be no hitches to stop the season from happening. But what is your level of I can only imagine, but what is your level right now, Steve, of excitement for the return of the season after this long layoff that we've had?
I imagine it's the same as you and the thousands of others in our field. Athletic communications professionals we're a different breed. We work longer and harder than most people in any profession in the world. I don't hesitate to say that, and I think that working for 7 to 8 months without events is unlike anything we've ever been through. And we want the games. I would argue we want to work weekends. We want to work nights again, and it's something we can't wait to do. I can't wait for basketball to start in the next couple weeks, and I certainly I look forward to a ridiculous spring when we're going to have you're going to have overlaps of 3 different seasons for the month of February, and then you're going to have some soccer in March, and you're going to have some lacrosse and field hockey, and you name it, baseball, softball, volleyball, and we're probably not going to love it in the moment, but we're all going to be so thankful when it's all back and our student athletes are on the field playing, and we're able to celebrate the highest of highs and be sad over the lowest of lows, and witness our student athletes and teams winning championships, right?
I mean, I can certainly echo those comments, the same as you said, Steve. I think sometimes we all get caught up even on a season that is working normally, where we're in the office again 9 to 5, and I mean, granted, us as SIDs, we're never in the office 9 to 5, but the 40-hour work week doesn't exist in the athletic communications industry, but we love it that way, and we certainly don't want it to change. We just love it for what it is, and we do what we do today for the student athletes, right?
Absolutely. You said it perfectly there. We do it for the student athletes, and we love coming to work every day and representing our institutions in every avenue of what we're doing, and the student athlete aspect is the one.
I mean, so many years you've given your life to Hofstra University, but you've given your life to working in collegiate athletics, and as we mentioned, working with these phenomenal student athletes. Looking back on your career at this point, what has made you want to work in college athletics?
I love sports, and I love the camaraderie of being around teams. And I mean, really, when you think about it, is there anything better than saying that your professional job and your daily existence of work is to be around sports, whether it's writing about them, playing them, or however else we need to interact with them. I love rooting on our teams as I'm deeply involved in my work, and it helps. I do say often that it helps working and being able to pour your heart and soul to a institution that you've also been a part of for so long, and I'm lucky to be at Hofstra University, and I thank the Lucky Stars every day. It brings a lot of joy to work at the institution that you were a part of as an undergrad, and it certainly makes it a lot easier to root for the wins, but it also makes it tough when you lose those games because it means so much to me personally.
I have to ask, I mean, you certainly have mentioned it already, but has working in this business been a dream come true for you?
A dream come true? I don't know what, maybe in some aspects, obviously being a professional for so long in this field has been a wonderful experience for me. I'm trying to remember back when I was like 15, what I wanted to be when I grew up, and what I dreamed about being when I grew up, because I guess I'm growing up now. Yeah, I love coming to work, and I love being part of, we call it the Hofstra family. It's really Hofstra's. I know I sound like I'm trying to sell the institution to somebody, but Hofstra's a special place. We call it the Hofstra family for a reason. The mentality is of like a small family, but we're a Division I institution, and we are highly successful. We incredible history in many different sports, from women's soccer to softball to volleyball to men's basketball. I could go on and on. I love coming to work, and yeah, you know what? It is a dream come true because of the people I get to work with on a daily basis and the teams I get to work with.
I do have a few general conversation points that I want to run through with you, Steve. But before we do that, I also want to open up this entire interview to our general public and the viewers that are watching. We have received a couple of questions, and Steve, would you mind if
Oh
I
no.
put those in? Would you
Oh
be
boy.
all right with that?
Yeah, I guess so. Hopefully it's questions I'm ready for. You better tell me who they're from so I can get back at those people after.
I mean, you'll have to excuse me on the pronunciation of the last name here, but we do have a question from Andrew Kona I'm going to bring up here
Oh
for
boy.
a second. And the question was, who were the top male and female athletes you have covered during your time at Hofstra?
Top male and female athletes I've covered during my time at Hofstra. You know what? Speedy Claxton. I wasn't the men's basketball contact at the time, but I certainly worked with Speedy, and I've worked with Speedy over the last nearly decade. I know Andrew well. He's a good friend. It's a tough question to answer because he's really asking my favorite, and he has put the word covered. But Speedy's at the top of that list. Since I've been at Hofstra in the professional setting, probably the best female athlete we've had is Olivia Galati of softball. I mean, she carried our program to the super regionals and went away from a College World Series appearance for Hofstra University, which is remarkable. And then there's people like Leah Galton of women's soccer, and I've mentioned Lizanne. And I could go on and on. So he really wanted favorite. I'll talk to him offline.
Well, thank you, Andrew, so much for the question. We really appreciate it, and we certainly invite more questions in the comments for me to present to Steve. But in the meantime, I do have to ask, who's been your biggest inspiration in life to help you achieve the goals that you have?
I guess the easy answer is family. My parents, Sina and Dennis, and my brothers, Howard and Andy. We grew up in Lafayette Hill, Pennsylvania, and they certainly showed me the ropes in all parts of my life. My dad thinks I look great. Thanks, Dad. Boy, now I'm going to turn red in the face. I didn't know my parents. Boy. Since I've been working at Hofstra University, my biggest mentor has been Cindy Lewis, our Senior Associate Director of Athletics and SWA. I really got to know Cindy once I started working with the volleyball program, and she's been an incredible mentor. She's a legend in college athletics, and I thank myself for getting involved with the volleyball program during that time because I got to really get to know her really well, and she's been just an unbelievable mentor to me in every facet of my professional career.
I meant to ask, and this was a question that we didn't have on the prompt, so I kind of want to put you on the spot here a little bit. I feel like I've been doing that a lot lately, and I'm taking Steve Gorchov a little bit out of his element. But
yeah,
working with a men's basketball program, it's a full travel gig. You're not home a lot between the months of November and hopefully March into April. Are there any? Looking up and down your history in the Colonial, the America East. Or even in non-conference, has there been a city that you've traveled to or two that you've really loved going to and love going to every year?
In conference, I'd be honest with you, there's two cities in the conference that I do really enjoy going to. I don't know if have you ever been to Charleston, South Carolina?
Never been. I've heard a lot of good things though.
Incredible town. I love going there. It really is an incredible town. It's a great spot for a short vacation if you can fit it in. And Wilmington, North Carolina, where UNCW is, I love those trips because I'm really close to the people that work there. Tom and Joe are just incredible representatives of our field, and I love being around those guys. And when we grab a meal with those two and Eric, if he's in town, it's really special because Joe Browning, as you know, is a legend in our field as well, and I love being around those guys, and they're true professionals of the athletic communications field, and I learn a lot from them every time I get to talk to them.
Did you feel, I know leading into this interview a couple of days ago, Joe Browning from, as you mentioned, UNCW had made a mention of it's going to be a great interview, a lot to look forward to. Did you feel a little pressure after he made that comment?
No, him and Tom Reardon are always pushing my buttons with stuff. So you just got to brush it off the shoulder a little bit and let it go. But I think that Tom has rubbed off on Joe a little bit because Joe's tries to be a little funny now, too much too.
Well, I would say not the history, but the tenure that yourself, Joe Browning, has had. what would you say really to those that are first getting into the business that want to be aspiring SIDs? What would be your advice after all these years in the business?
Certainly, as I kind of mentioned early on, and I don't love the word networking, but getting to know people is really the key point of our field, because you don't know when that relationship's going to lead to another opportunity for you or position for you. And then being a real, it's kind of simply said, but being a real professional in our field is so important, and you hate to see it when it doesn't happen. And when I say like be a real professional, it's respecting our own. So it's like when another person in athletic communications reaches out, be a professional, respond as quickly as possible. Don't ever ignore somebody, because if you're ignoring somebody who's in the same field as you, who knows how you're treating a member of the media or a coach or a student athlete. So professionalism to me is the absolute paramount point of our field. And I hope as a profession, we never lose that, because I really think that's what is so great about athletic communications in our field is how true professionals we all are. And that's why, people like Joe Browning or Jim Sheehan or people like that are so important to our field, because we can learn from them every day, and we can learn, the right way to be people in athletic communications. COSIDA really strives to be one of the great organizations in college athletics. And I think that the professionalism of our field is really one of the shining lights of athletic communications.
I was going to say though, aside from Jim, has there been I did ask you about who's really inspired you over the course of your career, but has there been someone? I mean, we've all gone to COSIDA conventions, EastCom conventions, and networked and gotten to meet so many other great professionals that we have in our business. We always say, as SIDs, we are one big family, because that's what we need to be. We all work together to try and help each other out. Who else have you really met in, along your trails, over your 30 years over your 30 years, that you could say that you really look to as an inspiration in this business alone?
Well, I mean, it's certainly people you see on an everyday basis, and a lot of those people in our own conference, and in our own office. We talked about Jim, and we certainly talked about Len. I learn from Len every day. I still ask Len to proof releases of mine. I'm 40, because, you see the same thing, and you want to be perfect all the time. So there's never, it's never wrong to learn from somebody else, no matter how young or how old you are. Certainly Jim, Len, Joe Browning, Mike Tuberosa at Drexel is somebody I'm really close with. And he's somebody I rely on. Brian at Iona, I certainly have known for the majority of my professional career. Tom Reardon, who I touched on before at UNC Wilmington. We've been friends for 20 years. I think we each started at our current institutions almost within, a couple months of each other. And he's somebody that I really rely on a regular basis for questions or other ideas. And I don't know how the saying goes, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. There's only so many ways you can do stuff in our field, as you know. And you just look at other schools and institutions you respect in this field, and that's how you learn how to be great. And that's how you learn to do things the right way. I might see something that Stanford women's soccer did, or Texas fencing. I don't know if there's a fencing team at Texas. But you know what I'm saying. And it's important to always keep an eye out for how other people are doing things and how other people are improving on a daily basis. Because once you stop looking for ways to improve, that's when you're going to get lapped. And you can never get lapped, and no matter if it's athletic communications or any field.
How would you, for those, I want to go back to those that aspire to be in the business. I was once 18 years old and thought my career was meant being a public address announcer before I transferred to CW Post, LIU Post, whatever you want to call it now, and and met a person very well, Tom Emberley, and took me under his wing and worked as a student assistant. I always say that volunteering your time, taking on those pro bono, those things that you can do for free just to get yourself experience and put it on a resume. What would be your first step I mean, we know how key networking is, but what would be your first step to say, how do you get your foot in that door?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's kind of changed over time. Certainly, for me, it was working with our athletic teams and getting to know people, and I think the world of college athletics has changed over the last 25 years, so that may not be the way it is today. But still, getting to know people and being involved in college athletics is never going to change. I don't love telling people to work for free, but if it's an avenue that can help you find an opportunity, it certainly can be helpful. And like you said, you did a lot of PA or other game day type of opportunities at institutions on Long Island, and that's a great way to get involved. Also, if you have experience, there's schools that need people every day, every event, and I can guarantee this spring there's gonna be a lot of schools on Long Island that need help covering events. So that's really a great way to get to know people and show people how valuable you are and how knowledgeable you are. Whether it's statting a volleyball match, which a lot of people don't know how to do, or if it's doing PA and you're pretty good at it at a field hockey match. There's a lot of different ways to be involved, and it's diversifying your skill set, and just learning things you can easily learn on the side. I didn't know how to stat a volleyball match probably before 1997, and I think at this point I could probably do one without a caller. So
I was going to say, Steve, were you one of them back then when in-game stats was necessary and you were still taking down hand stats? Was that you?
So no, I think we were doing computer stats when I started full time. When I was a manager, I would think we were doing hand stats, but by the time I started professionally, we were. I don't remember I think the name of the program was like Statman or something. I'm trying to remember. You should bring in Len. He would probably remember because I think he was the volleyball contact at that point. But yeah, so it was a different world, but it's certainly changed over the last 20 years, hasn't it?
I've only been in the business 15, and 15 years ago I was 21. So I'm not trying to age you there, Steve, at all.
I'm not that much older than you. Calm down.
No, I know. I have to ask, just what we see a lot in our business is, unfortunately, we do see a lot of turnover when people realize the commitment that it takes to be within our business. And this is kind of a two-part question with a joke kind of twisted in between. What is it like for you seeing all the turnover and knowing that really you are pretty much on Long Island, the active longest tenured SID in the business on the island? Because here on the Eastern Observer, our footprint is Long Island. And, what can we do to really remove the vast turnover that we see in our business?
It's a great question. And I think it's a question that really still doesn't have an answer. It's obviously been the way athletic communications has been for a long time. We work incredible hours. Obviously, we all wish we made a little more money, but we need people that advocate for our field. We need people that advocate for what we're doing on a daily basis. We need people to advocate for how valuable we are to a department, and I think that happens for the most part. But now we're in an era where schools are looking at every budget line because of the pandemic, and it's going to be a unique time for not just athletic communications, but every area of college athletics at institutions, from facilities to athletic training to athletic communications and everybody in between. So but it's really back to the point. It's just a matter of advocating for who we are and how valuable we can be. That we do everything, and I think I saw. I think it was, I don't remember who tweeted it, in the midst of a few people losing their job in our field about a month ago. Somebody tweeted about all the stuff our profession does, and it really is remarkable. And when you're deep in the middle of it, you don't think about it. But when you look at somebody putting it out in a graphic, and you're like, holy cow, we really are part of like 20 different branches of our department. And you love to see us get involved in everything and be active members of whether it's development to marketing and promotions to whatever it's going to be. We help everybody, and and that's how you show our value. And we just have to constantly do that, and we have to constantly, fight for ourselves and have others fight for us too.
I mean, I could be the first to say it along with you, Steve. It's just so unfortunate to see all the furloughs, the layoffs, and unfortunately, it's just the nature of the beast right now in terms of working in higher education and seeing how many students are not coming and the enrollment going down, and therefore, tuition not coming in. It's really left a lot of hard decisions. I kind of want to brighten up the room a little bit here, but did you, I guess, as a way to kind of close out this interview, did you take on? You were home for 7 months or so, and did you take on any new hobbies, interests, any Netflix shows that you were interested in while you're in quarantine?
I watch a lot of Netflix.
Okay.
And you name it, I probably watched it. Right now, I don't know if I should admit this because people love this show, but I never watched before, 3 months ago, West Wing, and I just recently got into West Wing. It's really good, and I love like the politics aspect of shows. So I'm not sure why I didn't get into West Wing when it was actually on, and why in 2020 I'm now getting into it. But if you haven't watched it, it's pretty good. But yeah,
a great time to get into politics, right, Steve?
What's that again?
Well, 2020 would be a great time to get into politics, right?
It would be certainly, and tomorrow and the next few days should be certainly an interesting time in our country, and it's really a remarkable time in our country. And I hope, and I'm sure you agree with me, I hope everyone stays safe over the next few days, and we can all come together as a country and and start to repair some of the divisiveness amongst our people and kind of move forward.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for coming on tonight. The Associate Director of Athletics for Communications, Stephen Gorchov. Steve, again, thank you so much for being with us, really for my first inaugural interview here on the Primetime Rundown interview series powered by StreamYard. We really appreciate it.
This has been great. I thank you so much for the time. You left me off easy. I thought you were going to start asking me like favorite restaurants or something, but we're good. And
where's your place to go along Hempstead Turnpike?
Well, the best Italian restaurant on Long Island is Cafe Bacci on Old Country Road and Merrick Avenue, but we'll leave it at that.
Well, I do think conversations between yourself and your public address announcer, Sadiq Faruqi, who agrees with you that Cafe Bacci is the best Italian place north of the Mason-Dixon line. So
it's fabulous. If you've never been, you should try it. But really, thank you so much for the opportunity tonight. It was great talking about some of my favorite things about Hofstra and talking about our profession. You're a valued member of the field, and I loved chatting for the last few minutes with you.
I was going to ask, Stephen, thank you so much for the compliment. I really appreciate it. Did you ever get that order in terms of what your favorite Halloween candy was on Twitter? Because I know you couldn't get that resolved.
Well, the best one is Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. Everything else is playing for second place.
I mean, Skittles isn't at the top of your list.
That is the worst.
I thought candy corn might be the worst, but
I'm indifferent on candy corn. So,
well, Steve, hang on for one more second as we close up here. Before we close tonight's show, we wanted to let our viewers know of what's coming up on the Eastern Observer this week. Tomorrow night, if you don't want to get caught up too much during the election, November 3rd, the Essential Wrestling Podcast returns with episode number 26 as Al Carl, John DeConti, John Smith, Ryan Joy, and Gary Mahaffey bring you the latest news in the world of wrestling. It all begins tomorrow at 6 p.m. right here on the Eastern Observer and I-95 Sports Network, Zango Channel 198. For more information, log on to theeasternobserver.com. 3 days from now, this Thursday, November 5th, Joey Jarzinka is back in the chair for episode number 41 of the Primetime Rundown interview series as he welcomes in former pro safety for the Philadelphia Eagles, Houston Texans, and New York Giants. Quentin Demps will be here this Thursday, November 5th at 8 p.m. And then on Friday, myself, Joey, Rob DeLuca are back breaking down all of the sports topics of the week on the Primetime Rundown. Once again, Friday, November 6th at 6 p.m. And then I will return in 2 weeks, Monday, November 16th, for episode number 43 of the Primetime Rundown interview series powered by StreamYard. As former New York Mets beat writer and current Associate Athletic Director for Strategic Communications at Stony Brook University, Adam Rubin joins me on the show. One last time, ladies and gentlemen, for my guest, the Associate Director of Athletics for Communications at Hofstra University, Stephen Gorchov. My name is Ian Schraier. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, Ian.